Hi, as Jerry Carita from Thorny Comics, and you're watching. Is it Blerdography or Blerdcast?
Either or is fine.
Okay, am I allowed to say that? I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that. I don't know if you've noticed. I don't have a ton of pigment in my face here.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It's the name of my channel and the name of my podcast.
No, I
But
know. So
Blerdography is the YouTube channel, and Blerdcast is the name of my podcast.
no, I know. I'm kidding. Someone recently told me like I don't think you're allowed. I don't think we're allowed to say blurred. I'm like I'm pretty sure it's okay. I think it's fine.
You're now listening to Blerdkast, presented to you by Blerdography.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Blerdcast, and I am tickled pink to have a guest return again. I would like to welcome back to the show. Welcome, Jerry. Got it right this time.
There you go. You got it. Yeah. I forgot that you got it wrong last time. That was funny.
Yeah, but me too. Like I had to so I did go back and rewatch the last episode, and that was the first thing. Like, why did I leave that in? That's kind of embarrassing. I should have just cut all that out. But no,
no, I thought it was funny. Yeah, I thought it was funny. It's real. It's real, you know.
Yeah, but how have you been? You look very busy at the moment.
Yeah, I think I said the first thing I said is this is not a fake background. I'm actually in an airport right now. I'm in San Jose. I'm flying to Toronto. I'm flying to LAX and then Toronto, and then tomorrow, Thursday night, I fly home to New York. So I'm busy. I'm traveling for work. I'm a television producer by day. So I was out here to meet some people about a possible future project. I'm flying to Toronto to wrap up a project I'm working on right now for Discovery Channel. And then I don't know what I'm doing next apart from more comics.
Anything you can kind of tell us, or you want to kind of keep that hush hush about the television stuff?
Well, Discovery hasn't announced the show yet. I'll tell you, it is about a company that builds sort of like these monster truck things. They like take normal trucks and they turn them into these gigantic, like supersized monsters. They're kind of awesome. That's all I'll say about it for now because they haven't picked an air date yet. So I don't know when it's going to be announced and be official.
Okay, cool. So for everybody who is not familiar with Jerry, Jerry came on about a couple of months ago to promote his book, The Grizzly Crew, and it was a very colorful book. If you haven't seen that interview, you guys can go back and check it out. It was very fun, very lighthearted. I really enjoyed that interview. And now you are back again promoting another book, but this time it's not a book you per se worked on. This is something else that's actually really different and kind of very special. And I would like to dig into how this book came about. So why don't you, I know you got to do it again because you did the promo, but why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit more about the book you're here to promote this time?
Now, the promo is a good practice for this anyway. The book is called Scott Snyder Presents The Cloak Room. My editing partner and publishing partner is Veronica Howell. We're both in Scott Snyder's Substack. She does a writing workshop through the Substack that he does. And it's kind of this awesome thing. I think Brian Michael Bendis does something similar, but you take classes. He does like a roughly every 2 to 4 weeks, he'll do a class where he'll bring on another creator and they'll talk about how to write a script or how to write a mystery or, what are the most important elements to a superhero story or, how to collaborate with an artist, like things like that. All the things that people, who are up and coming and kind of new to the industry want to learn. So he'll do these lessons about them. And then some people in the class are also at a level in the Substack, like at a tier where you can submit your writing to him and he'll actually give you notes on it. You'll meet with him, you get like these 5 or 10 minute meetings. And he's fantastic. He's like he remembers all the details of your story. And like, this is the guy who's like show running a TV show and now show running like half of DC Comics and also has all of his own, independent projects going. And like, he'll still get on the phone spend a day every week talking to like people like me about our little short comics that we're working on. And so a group of students in the class got together 2 years ago and they collected 17 or 18 stories from people in the class. And they put it together into a little anthology, like trade paperback. It's like 120 something pages. A year later, a totally different group of people did the same thing. And then a year after that, Veronica and I took over the project and we turned it, rather than trying to do 150 pages every year and trying to get like 18, young creatives and all their artists and people who haven't done this before onto one timeline, we were like, let's break it up and have it be an ongoing series. So every roughly 3 to 4 months, we've been doing an issue of the Cloak Room. Scott Snyder presents the Cloak Room. So issue 2 is on Kickstarter right now. It'll be live for another almost 2 weeks. It'll be live for 2 weeks actually. So up until August, I don't know when this will drop, but August 26th or 27th is when the campaign ends. You can get the first issue. You can also get the trade paperbacks that predated us taking it over all through the campaign. It's all on Kickstarter, and that's the book. And Veronica and I we actually work a lot on the book, even though we didn't write any of the stories. We worked as editors and publishers and curators of the stories. So, we try to have a good variety of different kinds of stories. So you're not picking up a book with 4 zombie stories and one other random thing. It's a nice spread of, sci-fi, zombie post-apocalypse, people descending into the recesses of their own mind to like face their fears, and like, quirky post-apocalyptic weird stories, and like, fairy tales, straight up, modern retellings of fairy tales, and just other things that are sort of like cautionary tales, like the Brothers Grimm kind of stuff. It's great, and we get to work with all these different people. A lot of times they just pitch us a story. It's a one-page pitch, and then we work with them on their script. We give them notes. We get to exercise the part of our brain that functions as an editor instead of a writer. So, and that's actually hard for someone who writes, because your instinct is to be like, here's how I would write it. But it's not about me. It's about them telling the best version of their story. So we get to work with them in that capacity, and it's really incredibly rewarding. We've had 7 stories that we're all like straight through. We're super proud of every one of them, and yeah, it's an awesome thing. And like, it's if anyone is looking to like really support indie comics, it doesn't get any more indie than this. We're not, the publisher is me. It's Thorny Comics. It's an operation of one. It's just me. And, Veronica and I don't take any profit. We don't take any money from the Kickstarter. We just recoup our costs. We're going to be out of pocket every issue. It's kind of almost the way, like there's no way around it, but we really love doing it. And we're kind of, finding the work really rewarding.
That's really cool, actually. I like that you're working with literally the next generation of writers. And are any of them like illustrators or artists, or are they all just writers?
So some of them do both. Mostly it's writers. Scott's a writer. It's a lot about structuring story. His classes are about like the structure of your book and your script and your way to communicate with artists. But there are a handful of people in the class who are just artists, and there are a handful who write and draw their own stories. This is one guy, we joke, Matt Salisbury. He's done a cover for both issues. He did the art for one story in the first issue. He did the art for a story in the second issue, and he also wrote and drew his own story. So he's actually the artist on 2 of the 7 stories and did a cover for this issue. So, you get someone like him, he's actually now, just earlier today, signed on to do the art for a story in the 3rd issue. So anytime we can kind of keep it within the class, like there's a letterer who's also a writer in the workshop named Lyndon Radchenka, and he letters a lot of these stories. Letters a lot since the beginning of the entire project. So we try to keep it all within Scott's orbit, but we reach out to artists who have nothing to do with Scott. We just want to pair people up with an artist that makes sense for them to make the best version of their story. So. We've had people work with Les Lyndon Garner, Nick Justice, Ross Nelly Salazar. There's been a whole bunch of really great artists.
Again, this is such a fascinating collaboration of just different artists and writers, both from the professional standpoint as well as on the student standpoint, the people who are learning, who are going to be the next generation of sequential artists. So let me ask you this: what has been an eye-opening moment for you while working with this next generation? Like, have you learned something new that you didn't think you would learn from, say, your students? Because that's always like a trope when teachers teach students. Sometimes the students become the teacher. Have you had moments like that, or let's just go with that.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about it is that we're all students. That's the whole thing. Is like we're all we're all in this because we're all in Scott's class. So it's not it's not like they're working for me or I'm like the boss. Like Veronica and I will, we'll give notes, and sometimes they're harsh notes. Sometimes it's like, I think you should rewrite the back half of your story. That's rare. And sometimes we read a story and we're like, this is great. We have like a couple of questions more than like real notes. You just like, I wanted it, like, here's a thing that interested me. Why didn't you go down this path in the story? I'll say what I've learned and I've been surprised by is you often think of creative people as having really either big egos or fragile egos or really big fragile egos. And almost like straight through, I don't think anyone has been anything other than open to feedback. Like everyone in the group is there to learn. They're all in Scott's class because they're there to learn. And so anytime someone takes the time to read their script and just give them thoughts on it, like they just want to talk about it. They just want someone to bounce the ideas off of, and they all just want to make their story better and sharper and kind of make their point, whatever point they're trying to get across in their story, make it clearer, make it more poignant, make it funnier. So everyone's been super open, even when it's just like, there's one writer, I'm not going to name names here, but there's one writer who, talks about how they feel like they have a weakness with dialogue. And so all of our notes are about the dialogue, in those stories. And there's one writer recently turned in a script and, didn't get notes back right away. And then was basically begging for notes. And the note that we gave them was like, I think you should probably rewrite most of the story. And then they did. They just were like, thank you. That's fantastic. I'm going to dig into this tonight. So everyone's been really open to feedback and constructive criticism. And I think Veronica and I have tried really hard to give always constructive criticism and not just like, this sucks, or, here's how you should write it. Like, this is the line. It's all about like bouncing the ideas back and forth so that you're helping them make the best version of the story they have in their head. That's what they want to see on the paper. They want to see the story they already kind of have in their head.
That's good, and that's really good that you bring that up, because I feel like, especially as artists within this generation, especially with content creators in general, a lot of them misunderstand constructive criticism and feedback. A lot of times you do run into a lot of egotistical artists, or even, I would want to say, pretenders, because any real artist will understand what real constructive criticism and feedback is. You always start with something nice and just add on to what can be worked on without just being negative all the time, unless it's something that just needs to be said. Like, you can tell when someone's just pretending to be something that they're not, and when someone's really putting in the work, and you eventually get to see what talent and growth looks like. So I think that's really fascinating that you are working with these students and everyone's coming together to understand that we all are students in this, and constructive criticism can just only do nothing but help you grow. So I think that's really fascinating.
And it really is. It's my first time working as an editor. I don't think it's Veronica's first time. I think she was an editor or an assistant editor at another company for a little bit, but it's my first time doing this. So, I think I've done a lot of writing for television. So, in my opinion, like a good story is a good story. It doesn't really matter the medium. You're just kind of tweaking, for comic book has page turn moments that you need. A TV show has act breaks where the commercials come that you need to have like a dramatic thing. So there's little structural things like that change, but ultimately, story arc is a story arc. It's still an arc, it still has that shape and that kind of feel to it. Yeah, I've really enjoyed kind of just like giving people feedback on that and kind of working with them and, helping them make their thing come to life. It's been a lot of fun.
Now, since like you said, this is your first time being an editor and you are working with people from different talent pools, have you noticed like a level of or a difference in skill level between, say, the really talented and the ones that kind of have to work with it? Like, how do you teach people who are just great and then people who are just learning? Is there any difference, or how would you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a big difference. I think some people who are just for the first time thinking about putting a story on paper, they're they're not going to know any of the rules. Not that you can't like break rules, but you kind of have to know the rules there in order to break them in like fun, efficient ways. Whereas people who've done it before have a little bit more experience. You can kind of just it's almost like the vocab. You speak the same language, so you can kind of get into the language of your notes and your feedback a little bit more easily. Whereas someone who's just getting into it, like you kind of have to teach them the vocabulary. Like some people, we've had meetings with writers for the first time who've written a story, they put it on a pitch and it sounds like it's going to be really cool. But then we'll be in the middle of the first meeting and we'll say something about a page turn moment and they'll go, what does that mean? You know, and that's like a comic book thing that if you're talking to someone who's been writing these kinds of stories for a while, you don't have to slow down to explain that kind of stuff. So, you know, I think that that's the main difference. I think that anyone really talented writers are capable of having terrible ideas, and really brand new writers who've never done this before, who might never want to do this again and might not be great at it, can have great ideas. You know, some people have one great idea. And so, you know, I don't think there's a big discrepancy there. I think some people are more polished writers, but their story will sometimes not be as like fascinating. Whereas we've had a few people who have great ideas that are complex, and then when they actually put it on paper, you have to kind of talk through, you know, where to put the turn, how to build up to the twist, how to make this moment that's supposed to be a surprise actually feel like a surprise. You can't have someone being shot on the left page and then you already see that they were missed on the right page. You kind of have to time those things for where the page turns are and stuff like that. Little things like that, you know, which are more just structure, more format really than structure, you know. But you know, it's like we get a wide variety of levels and people with experience and no experience, and we get really great stories and sometimes really hard to get through stories from people at all of those levels.
That's a really good point, because even talented people can turn in crap, if that makes sense, if I can say that. What do you think the students get? What do you think their biggest takeaway from this project is?
I mean, I think what they're in it for is to see a comic that they came up with, hold it in their hand. You know, like that first time you create something and you get to physically hold it in your hand, or you just see it completed. That's right. An awesome feeling. And if comics is the thing that you loved and now you made one, it's an awesome feeling. I think that's it. I think like some of them are just going to write one or two stories and kind of move on, and they just will have that experience and be like, cool, I wrote that story, I was proud of it, and you know, I'm going to go live my life now. I think a lot of these people want to do this more for a living, and so they'll keep working at it and they'll use it as an experience to learn something and to go on from there.
Cool. But all right, so let me flip that question. What is your biggest takeaway from this, since this is your first time being an editor and I'm assuming working in this type of environment, working with students?
I think it's just how much fun. I've always thought, like, I went to, you know, I studied film in college and did screenwriting classes and TV writing classes. And I always thought I wanted to be a writer and director, and that I wouldn't feel fulfilled creatively working on someone else's story. And what I'm learning is that I do. This is like, I love this. I really enjoy being a sounding board and, you know, having like a 2-hour phone call where you're just like bouncing ideas about a 2-page spread and trying to figure out how to make it make sense. I really enjoy it. And I really like helping other people get their stories out there. So I think that's been, for me, the biggest surprise.
Okay. That's really cool. I'm so happy that you are just have taken up this role, because like you said, it seems like you were having fun and you were enjoying it. So again, just really good there. With this project in itself, like you said, this is the second time that you guys have really done this project like this. Where would you go from here with, say, the next, I would assume, semester of students, or the next class of students, or even 5-10 years down the road? Would this be like a drawing point to get more students in, and you would eventually want to see it grow to become something bigger, or is it just going to be a little small class project?
Our long-term goal, we're kind of open to everything. So, you know, the anthology series doesn't have a theme apart from the connection to Scott. And so what we're long-term, one option that we've talked about is once we have like 5 or 6 of these issues under our belt, so another, like 9 to 12 months from now, when we're at issue 6 or 7, we would rearrange the stories and aim to distribute them through comic book shops, through a more traditional direct market, way of selling the books. We just thought that would be cool too. Just have people see their books for sale in their own local comic shop. So that's one thing we've talked about. I think that, Scott, for as long as he's happy to let us keep doing this, and support it, and as long as he's doing his Substack and teaching the classes, I think that Veronica and I are pretty happy to keep it going for as long as possible. So I think that, what would we do differently? When we first put out, when we put out the first call for submissions within the class, we got, I think, like 50 something different creators sent us 80 something different stories. Some people sent us 5, some people sent us 1, but we still have a lot of stories to get through before we're even out of the ones that we got from the beginning. And some of those we wrote back and we said, this doesn't feel like it's a fully fledged idea yet. Let's talk about it, but it's not like we're not going to consider it yet. And then, I think that we're going to keep on doing it until the class stops or Scott tells us we have to knock it off.
Gotcha. I think this whole thing is dope. Let me ask you this. So how involved are the students with running the actual Kickstarter campaign? Are they also learning about self-publishing and the difference between self-publishing and then working with another publisher and things like that? Or are you guys just running the Kickstarter and they're just learning creating the comic book part?
So I did a bunch of Kickstarters before I started doing these. I did. So I'm the one who has the most Kickstarter experience out of the people involved. What I do is, for promotion purposes, all the creators get the link early on. We encourage them to share it whenever possible. Anytime I post about, and I post almost every day, but on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, I'll post about the project and I'll tag whichever creator's story is being featured, and they'll reshare it with their own family and friends on their own social media platforms. So everyone kind of helps. Everyone helps put the book in front of their family and friends and fans, and everyone helps bring it to their own local comic shop. We have retailer tiers so that, if your local comic shop wants to pick up the book, they can pick up 10 or 20 copies of either or both issues, and sell them. And we sell them to retailers at a pretty big discount. We get something like a 55% discount on the cover price. So, we try to keep everyone involved that way, but we try to make it easy for them to promote, and really, it's really up to them how involved they want to be. And what happens is, if you get a group who are, our first issue, we happen to have 2 or 3 people who have very big online followings. The second issue, it's a little bit less so, so it was a little bit easier to promote the first one. It's a little bit more challenging for this one, but we're still doing just fine. We're still on track to cross our funding goal, probably a little later than I would have wanted, but we'll probably cross it like right near the end of the campaign. I think that some of them are shyer and they're just not going to go on podcasts and talk to people and put themselves out there. So people are introverts, but they're all encouraged to promote and welcome to do it as much as they want.
Right. Well, one of the biggest lessons to learn there is, self-promotion is a part of the game. Branding is a part of the game. Oftentimes, you have to look at this outside of the box. Like, you're not just an artist, you're not just a writer or an illustrator or an inker or a letterer. You are a business. You have to promote your business and get your brand out there, get your product out there in order for people to see it. And that's a lesson that a lot of people, especially myself, have to kind of learn and get out of that artsy mindset and jump into the business mindset. To be a successful artist means you need to be a successful business, if that makes sense. And that's a lesson I wish I had learned back when I was younger and in art school, thinking I could change the world with a pencil.
Yeah, I mean, the whole game has changed too. Like the internet, Kickstarter, all these tools we have now, where it feels more and more like everyone can be self-published. and just do it themselves. It's at least possible. Everyone knows, at least can think of a few people off the top of their head who have huge online followings, and that's how they ended up getting their big break. They built their own following. They showed up with a fan base of 100,000 people, and that's how they got their foot in the door. They proved themselves first, as opposed to coming up in the system. So that wasn't always available to people. I think, like my mom, for example, my mom is a writer, and the idea of self-promoting, self-marketing, she's just not interested in it. She wants to write her story. She wants to write her books. She doesn't want to also print them and deal with deliveries and shipping and go to try and sell them. She wants a publisher to do that, and that's perfectly legitimate. It's just it's harder to break in that way.
Right.
It's more binary. It's not harder. It's just more, you either get in or you don't. Whereas if you're out there putting yourself out there constantly, if you really want to hustle at it, you can build up a following of people who are going to like what you're doing. But that part can take a lot of work, and some people just don't. That's not what they're in it for. They want to be creative, and they want to even if it means they don't sell a ton of books, they just want to be creative, and it's perfectly legitimate. But if you want to, like, you can't really complain then if you don't, if you're not having success. You got to, because there is a path. You just have to follow it.
Right, I get that. So, do any of the students write on the first book or this book show the potential, like, oh, they're going to be the next great comic book artist? Not trying to drop names, but do you see like that? Do you see that spark in some of those students? Like, you see them going to different cons and creating their own books with their own stories, and just doing this as a career versus this is just a splash in the pond type of thing?
I mean, I definitely know at least 3 of our creators are people who just want to do it for a living. A lot of the artists already do it for a living. Some of the artists who work on the book already. The writers, though, a couple of them are still working at it. Almost everybody has a day job. They're almost all still starting out, and you can't really afford to live on every once in a while I publish a short story in an anthology. Kind of money. You can't really live like that. So everyone's got day jobs. I think some people have day careers. I've lived a whole life before I really started doing this. But I think that the potential is definitely there. There have been at least a few. I mean, most of them, honestly, if they really wanted to just focus on writing and doing that, like, they could. And even that, how you get there is like, if you want to be like a high output writer, where you're doing like 4 books a month, like, does everybody have that in them? No, but there are really talented writers who might spend 5 years putting together their 7-issue opus, and then it'll be like the best story ever told. And I've definitely seen the potential for both.
Very cool. Very cool. I think this is a very fascinating project. I want to ask, is this like a local program? Can like people across the country of different ages get into this program if they're interested? How does one become a student?
So it's all through Scott Snyder's Substack. His Substack is called Our Best Jacket. Jacket is spelled with 2 T's at the end. Those are a play on his 2 sons' names, Jack and it's not Emmett. I can't remember his name now. Beckett? Might be Beckett. I don't remember that, but it's a play on his 2 sons' names, and so it's our best jacket. It's a Substack. You can subscribe to it for free. You can also subscribe at a paid tier. I think you have to be in the paid tiers to get into the class, and then there are higher tiers where you can submit stories, and he'll actually give you notes on them and stuff like that. You don't have to do that. But basically, anybody who's a paid subscriber to Scott's class is welcome to submit their stories to us to be in the club. That's our only rule, is that we want people who are in the class, who are like active participants in the group.
Okay, cool.
And when you join, there's a ton of ways to get in touch. You can find us at Thorny Comics. I'm the only at Thorny Comics on Instagram, on Twitter. I'm the only one on Facebook, I believe. I'm Jerry at thornycomics.com. I have a Substack, Jerry Carita. Substack.com. You can reach out to me through any one of these platforms, and I always write. It's always me. I don't have like a social media manager. I'm not that big yet, but so you get me, and I'll send you back the instructions on how to submit and what to submit. But you just have to be somebody who's in the class.
Okay, cool. That's really good. Anybody that's watching or listening to this, please go check it out. If you are interested in learning more about how to write or illustrate or do anything in comics or sequential arcs, I definitely recommend you check it out. Before
You
we
can, and
go,
you can be anywhere in the world. So, we have writers in Australia. We have a lot of Canadians. We have them all over America, from Texas all the way up into New York, everywhere. So you can be anywhere in the world and do it.
that's cool. Definitely. So it's international. That's dope. Before we go, I know you're a very busy man, but I also know you are a big geek. So I have to ask you, what have you been geeking out to recently while you're in between airports?
Well, you know what? I'm carrying it with me. I haven't. My buddy who I work with, who reads some comics, was telling me about this book, and we were at Midtown Comics in Manhattan together. So I only just started reading it. It's Grant Morrison and Dan Mora. Claus.
Oh, okay.
Have you read that?
No, I haven't.
It's like a Santa Claus origin story. How Santa Claus began, and it's one of those, like, Santa's like a Viking-looking murderer kind of guy.
Okay.
So I'm really excited to read this when I get on the plane later. But what else have I been watching? I've been watching Jujutsu Kaisen with my son. I've been catching up on House of the Dragon, and I just finished The Acolyte. What have you been watching? Let me ask you what you've been watching.
So I did just finish watching House of the Dragon season 2, and I just got into season 1 of Jujutsu Kaisen myself. I'm actually finding it very interesting. Anime is very weird. I've been away from anime for so long, and I'm jumping into that one. I'm like, oh, okay, anime is weird. What else? Obviously, just my busy season. I've been doing a bunch of podcasts, a bunch of conventions. I am getting ready to do Dragon Con as press for the first time, so that is definitely a big deal. I have like Walk of Fame access, so I get to interview the big celebrities. So I've been scrambling for like the last 2 months, just coming up with questions and researching the different guests I want to interview, and I hope I get a chance to interview them. And of course, get ready for my big cosplay shoots, and working on secret projects that I can't talk about until after Dragon Con. So yeah, I've been busy myself. I've been geeking out with just life in itself.
Who are the people at Dragon Con that you would be most excited to have them walk past you and stop to talk? Who's like your top five? Your top five. Give me your top five.
All right, so John Carlos Exposito is going to be there from Breaking Bad, and basically every like super serious villain that's been out since Breaking Bad. So I would love to pick his brain. Seth Green is going to be there. Obviously, he's I grew up with his entire career from Idle Hands to Family Guy and Robot Chicken. Just so many things I want to ask him, but
don't forget Can't Hardly Wait. Don't forget Can't Hardly Wait.
Oh yeah, Can't Hardly Wait. So that's gonna be dope. Who else? They've announced like so many like people. It's like they have like over 300-400 like just listed people coming. So I've been trying to comb through the crevices to find like just anybody. Like there are different comic book artists, different authors, different performers, performance groups and bands and artists. Different cosplayers are coming, like Yaya Han, not Yaya Han, but like big cosplayer, why can't I talk? Big cosplayers are coming. I'm just excited. I got like a Power Ranger shoot, an Avatar shoot, a Black Geek shoot, the All Fighting video game shoot, a Peter Pan cosplay shoot, all the different panels that are going to happen. So I know you asked me about just like my top 5 guests, but it's more than just the top 5 guests. It's like the different events there. I'm finally going to get to cosplay at the aquarium, hopefully. So it just already like doing press just added on to all this stuff I was going to be doing anyway. Now I get to interview big celebrities at one of my favorite conventions, and I'm like getting a little anxious about it. Like it's a couple of weeks coming up, so I'm just like, I can't wait.
It's awesome.
I'm a little excited.
I think my buddy Ming Chen is going to be there. So if you see him there, give him my best.
What's his name again?
Ming Chen from Comic Book Men.
Oh, okay.
He's one of the stars of Comic Book Men.
So I'm assuming he'll be in Artist Alley, and I will have a chance to interview him on Sunday because that's when we get to do all the artists. So I get to add him to my list because I need like people for that list. So I'm gonna add him to my list.
Nice. I'm scrolling through the guest list right now. Some of these guys I've gotten to be part of interviewing too. I did a show called Geeking Out with Kevin Smith and Greg Grunberg, and we interviewed my favorite episode. We interviewed Rhett Reese and Kyle Werner? It's the writers for Deadpool.
Right. Oh yeah.
And they're the writers for the movies, and they were awesome. But we interviewed Nathan Fillion, Alan Tudyk, and J.J. Abrams. We had a ton of people on the show. Yeah, I'm looking at the list. There's Seth Green. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else that I knew. Greg Grunberg's going to be there. Tell him I said hi.
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome, man.
It's a ton of people. Like every time I go look at the list, not only do they add like a new 10 people every day, because I only can interview but so many people by their rules. So I'm like, who do I pick? It's so many to pick. Like I want to interview everybody. I want to spend the whole con just interviewing people.
Yeah. Did you said you didn't see anime in a while? No, it's not technically anime, but did you watch Blue Eye Samurai?
No, I haven't seen that yet, but I have seen a lot of people talk about it.
You need to watch that. You can lay off Jujutsu Kaisen. That show's going to be on forever. Watch Blue Eyed Samurai. They did one season. There's definitely a second season coming. They set it up. It was my favorite TV show of last year.
Okay, I'm gonna add that to my extremely long list of anime that is hanging up on the wall behind me. So yeah, oh god, it's a long list. Like it's stuff I've started, I gotta finish. One Piece is on. I'm gonna have to take One Piece off. That is not gonna get finished. I'm not gonna attempt it.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's a lot. I just started it. I just started reading the manga.
I'm sorry.
That's the first one to apologize to me for it.
That's the only thing I can tell you. I keep saying, because this is like the third podcast in a row where I had to say this, we all will be dead before One Piece is done. There's no point in starting it now if you hadn't started 10 years ago.
Right. I mean, it is a fast read, though, so maybe I'll catch up. No? You don't think so?
I mean, if you keep sitting around in the airports, maybe. Sure. But, who knows?
I have to keep taking trips to avoid my... I have to keep taking trips and avoid my whole family.
But before we go, I normally give all my guests a soapbox to stand on to talk about anything that is close to their heart. Yes, I've been doing this for the last couple episodes. A lot has been changed since you last been on. Yeah,
at least I don't like all these format things. It doesn't the structure. I just can't handle it.
Oh, I'm sorry, but it's just a soapbox you can stand on to talk about anything that you want to talk about. Rather, you want to re-promote the comic book, or you want to talk about your son, your wife, or just your travels. It's up to you, positive, negative. It's a soapbox. It's your platform.
I'm trying to think of if I have any. I don't have a hot take for you, so I don't have anything to really be controversial about. I used to be full of those. I used to pick fights on Facebook with my family all the time, but then I stopped talking politics on social media. I think if I'll just say this about comics, they're awesome. I love making them. If you can look me up and find me through any of the many places you find me, look, jerrycarita.substack.com is the one that I'm trying to push the most. I'm trying to organize all my comic book people and followers under that. But I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm everywhere. Come find me. I have 2 Kickstarter accounts because I always have 2 projects in the hopper, and I've had to run 2 campaigns at the same time sometimes. We're doing this one now. It'll be over in 2 weeks. It'll be over August 27th. We're starting another issue. We're doing a holiday themed issue right after. So that one will launch like 2 weeks after this one ends. And then I'm doing the first full issue of the first comic I wrote, Cicada Samurai. First full issue is my next project. And so that one, the pre-launch page is already up on Kickstarter. So if you go looking for Cicada Samurai on Kickstarter, you'll find that as well. I think that's it, buddy.
Yep, and you're going to be on for every single one of those Kickstarter launches. We just need to make sure you're on before the middle of the Kickstarter. That's all we need to make sure. So I guess we need to just go ahead and reschedule you for next week so we can get all those out and pretend like, oh, we launched it and recorded 5 minutes before it did it.
Let's do it.
That's cool. We'll work on that. For everybody, that's been Blerdcast. Thank you guys for watching. By the way, I don't know if I helped last time with the last campaign. I don't know if anyone who watched the last interview with you came, but hopefully people who watch this video will come and help out the students because this is such a dope project. So I do want to end and just say that. But for everyone, thank you again for listening to Blerdcast. Thank you again, Jerry, for coming on. This has been such a dope interview, and like I said, love this project. You can find Blerdcast everywhere you listen to your podcast on the interwebs, and don't forget to subscribe to Blerdography for more fun videos that aren't interviews. And until next time, it's going to be another comic book interview. I guarantee it.